What's up YouTube? Welcome to another episode of Project Ventures. And for the video today, what we're going to be doing is a financial analysis of my Turo fleet's performance for the year of 2020. So today is January 1st, 2021. As everyone is aware, 2020 was a completely turbulent year for a lot of industries, especially car rental and tourism industries. So what I'm going to be doing today is sharing with you my fleet's performance. We're going to dive into the details of my revenue, my expenses, and show you exactly how much profit I made on all of my cars, which I currently have on the Turo platform. This video should be super useful for you if you're thinking about starting a Turo fleet and kind of looking to understand the financial side behind the business and if it's going to be worth your time to start your own fleet. All right, so without further ado, let's jump into what happened in 2020.
All right, guys, so what we're going to be looking at is the impact of COVID-19 and kind of how my earnings worked and my fleet performed in 2020. So looking at the overall picture for 2020, we can see that I earned $15,000 on the Turo platform. I currently have 3 cars on Turo, and this is kind of the main time where we were impacted with COVID. So starting off the year, January and February were fairly strong months coming straight into the year. And then it was just the tail end of February and beginning of March that we start to see the real drop in demand. The demand kind of went all the way down until kind of August, where it picked up prior to prior levels. What was really interesting, kind of after August, what I saw here in Miami, I don't know if it's the same in other locations, but a lot of people were looking to car rentals as they didn't want to Uber, they didn't want to use public transport, so they really wanted to have their own car for their vacations. Another really interesting thing about kind of the individual car performance is you can see that the residential demand really held up my fleet in 2020. So kind of at the beginning of the pandemic, you can see the Toyota Camry wasn't really affected as much, dropping from roughly earning about $400 to $373, the worst month in May. But the rest of the year has remained fairly consistent. I expect to get about $500 to $600 for this car a month. But if you compare that to the Mazda Miata, which is a convertible, and it's obviously much more tailored to tourists here in Miami, you can see that we had a complete drop off kind of end of Feb, March. In April, we can get a single rental for this car, which is quite worrying, but we've built up the demand and it's been taking it along quite nicely. So what I like to show you guys next is kind of on a car by car basis. I'm going to be showing you exactly the revenue that they're bringing in and the expenses that they've had for the year since they've bought them, and kind of show you exactly how much you can expect to make if you did decide to start your own fleet on Turo. Starting off with the Toyota Camry, we can see through 2020 and 2019, we had fairly similar revenue for the year, which brought the total income of the car to about $11,700. And then this kind of against the expenses, we can see that the expenses have been fairly low for this car in terms of maintenance throughout the 2 years, and brought the total expenses to just over $12,000. So looking at kind of this from an ROI perspective, you can see through 2020, I had about 48% return on my initial investment. So earning pretty much 50% back on the car each year. Since I've had the car for 2 years now, obviously that's just nearly paid for itself at 97%. Looking on a kind of a monthly ROI basis, we can see this is about 4.4% on the initial capital invested in Turo when I bought the car. So pretty good in terms of a traditional investment. That's a really, really good number. But you'll see as we go through, you can get some higher numbers from different cars within the fleet. So looking at my next car, which is 2013 Ford Mustang. So this car was actually totaled. It was crashed in an accident here in Miami. I have a video about another Ford Mustang that was totaled, which will be in the top left. So if you're interested in that video, please check it out. And it goes through the whole claims process on Turo. So one kind of interesting note from the Ford Mustang. So the rental revenue was a lot higher, obviously, than the Camry. It produced a pretty good ROI because we had a lot of tourists who would come and they would pay more for the car. So in 2020, it earned just over $1,000 before crashing in February, so early in the year. I was paid $9,348 for this car. And that combined with the revenue from 2019 produced a total income of just under $19,000. So if we can compare this with the total expenses that for the car in which I paid is approximately $12,500. So on the initial capital that I invested, I had a ROI of 150%. I had this car for only 11 months, so I didn't have it for that long at all. So it was a really, really good way to kind of double my money with this car. Pretty good return on the Ford Mustang, although there was a lot of headaches that came along with the crash and running a convertible car in Miami. So the next car I want to show you guys is the Mazda Miata. So this is another car which is very, very popular with tourists here. So you can see for 2020, it brought in nearly $5,500. This car was really significantly affected by COVID. So I'm hoping that now we're kind of out of the lockdown and we're seeing a real pickup in demand for tourism here in Miami, that this will continue to do well in 2021. However, with the expenses, you can see that this car has cost me a fortune. I spent nearly $5,300 just maintaining this car. We've had issues with the trunk latch. We've had issues with the brakes, the shocks, the transmission. So a lot of kind of issues with this car, which is a kind of a downside of having a sporty, more convertible car. People don't treat it as well, and things break. So you can see the ROI is a lot lower at 32%. So overall, I've had this car for a year and a half, made about 50% revenue against my expenses. So quite a low monthly ROI of 2.9%. In kind of complete contrast, this is the newest addition to my fleet, which is a 2015 Toyota Corolla. So I was able to pick this up in the pandemic at a really, really great price. I got it from a private buyer, one owner. It was very, very, very good condition. And it's been an absolutely amazing car since I've had it. So it's produced $2,500 for 2020 in 4 months. And you can see that against the total expenses of $11,500, we've already seen a 22% return on the initial investment of the car. So on a monthly basis, that's roughly equates to about 4.4% return on investment. So kind of looking back on 2020 and just kind of my views on COVID and kind of what I've seen from the Turo platform is the demand has remained pretty strong for car rental, and very surprisingly so. So we saw that dip in March. However, demand has really bounced back here in Miami, and we've seen some really strong months since August for demand. As I mentioned previously, I likely think this is because people are not wanting to take Ubers. They just want to get their own car, kind of have less interactions with people as possible. Next big insight is kind of the support of the local market. So my economy cars, my Toyotas, have performed really, really well, not dipping that much during the pandemic in comparison to, say, the Mazda Miata or other cars which are much more kind of focused for tourists. Another good point is guests are way more comfortable with remote pickups and drop-offs, which is really, really useful since everything has kind of gone that way. But one of the most important takeaways from 2020 for me is I've really saw that reduction of income from changes in Turo's policy. So sure you guys are aware Turo changed its mileage policy. So it actually increased the minimum amount of miles per car and also the amount you can charge guests if they do go over that mileage. And the same with the damage policy. Now you can't just claim and they'll pay you out. There's a lot more steps and you're liable for a lot more of the cost. So a lot of Turo's changes in 2020 were really against the host. They've really kind of been more favorable to the renter. However, as you can see, just from the revenue alone from my 2020, even though I had a pandemic, I'll still be able to produce a 40 to 50% return on the cars which I have, which to me is kind of an alternate investment, is a really, really good result. So that's my results for 2020, guys. I hope you find this useful. I hope you find this information interesting. If you do have any questions or comments, don't feel afraid to just submit them down below in the comment section. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. And with that being said, that's everything for today. So thank you so much for tuning in, and until next time, thanks for watching.